All right. Good morning. I've got uh, this is IXL. It is the causes of the war 1812. We're going to do section one here. All right. The first question it has is the United States fought which country in the war 1812? Well, our choices are Russia, Great Britain, Canada, and France. And this is one of those ones where I'd almost like to argue that it's two answers. Um, The answer is not Russia, and the answer is not France. The answer is Great Britain. However, Canada was part of Great Britain at that time, and we fought many of the battles against Canadians in Canada and the United States. But they were British subjects then, so Great Britain is the answer. From 1803 to 1815, the British were fighting which ruler? We've got King Ferdinand VII of Spain, General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna of Mexico, Napoleon Bonaparte of France, and Sir George Prevost of Canada. Now, again, Canada was part of Great Britain, so no. Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna, if you've heard of him, this is the guy that was in charge of Mexico. That when you remember, we say, remember the Alamo and Texas independence? That's who uh, Sam Houston and the Texans fought in the Alamo. King Ferdinand VII of Spain? Nah, it's not even. The answer is Napoleon Bonaparte of France. And this is one thing that we get to start learning now, because when you go to high school, it's really going to be important learning about Bonaparte and the role that they played in France, a role that France played in Europe. All right, we got a picture of Monsieur Petit General. From 1803 to 1815, the British were fighting Napoleon Bonaparte of France. Napoleon wanted to add more land to the French Empire by taking over Europe. The British did not want that to happen. I got to say, that's actually not really true. Napoleon planned on taking over the world. He wanted to spread France as far as possible all over the world. They were taking land in Africa. They were taking land in Asia. His plan was to actually even take land in North America here, which is how they got the Louisiana. They got the land in the Louisiana Purchase that we bought from them. It had belonged to Spain. Napoleon got it because he wanted to invade the United States. He wanted to invade North America. This is kind of, it's true, but only really a small portion of the truth. All right. In 1803, Great Britain and France began fighting each other. What country did the United States officially support? France, Great Britain, or neutral? This is a really important point for this time period. When George Washington became president, we had promised France during the American Revolution that we would always fight for them on their side. They help us beat Britain, we would always be France's friend. Well, then George Washington became president. France said, hey, remember you said you were going to be our friend? And George Washington refused. And this made France really mad. So for a long, long time, we had both Britain and France mad at us. We said, well, we don't want to be a part of your fight. You guys fight with each other. We're going to stay out of it. The United States was neutral. George Washington started this policy. John Adams continued it. John Adams actually lost re-election because of what was going on in France. Thomas Jefferson and then finally James Madison ended up taking sides and fighting against Great Britain. But the United States was neutral in 1803. Okay, the United States was officially neutral because the American population was divided. The Federalists, and this is important, generally supported Great Britain. Okay, and remember, the Federalists supported Great Britain. We're going to go to war with Great Britain. So guess what that made Federalists look like they were? It made them look like they were traitors. This is going to hurt the Federalists. The Democratic Republicans generally supported France. Federalists versus Democratic Republicans. The Federalist Party and the Democrat Republican Party were two of the first political parties in the United States. The Federalists generally wanted a strong central government, a federal government. The Democrat Republicans generally wanted more rights for states. The two parties disagreed, well, on everything, but this thing here says foreign policy because it's talking about war between France and Great Britain. How was American shipping affected by the Napoleonic Wars between France and Great Britain? All right. Down south, they had all the plantations. Virginia, South Carolina, North Carolina, they were making money off plantations. And the folks in the north, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New York, they made money selling what the people in the south, they would go down and ship it. They would buy it. They would trade it. They would transport it all over the world. Well, Great Britain and France didn't like that because we were competition. All right. So they were really trying to hurt American shipping. Both sides were. And so the question is, how was the shipping affected by the Napoleonic Wars? Shipping declined. Well, that's the answer, because war increased demand for British and French goods. But that's wrong because of this part. Shipping was interrupted. British and French would capture American ships headed for Europe and prevent goods from getting to their opponents. All right, that's true. It was interrupted. Shipping boomed. That's just right straight out. War increased demand for American goods. It did, but the British and the French did everything they could to stop it. Glad I got it right. What was impressment? All right, and this word here has nothing to do with being impressed. Like, oh, look at that. Impressment, sending foreign sailors to jail for not paying taxes. That's kind of silly. Stopping ships from leaving or entering ports. Okay, that's not impressment. That's embargo. Forcing sailors on foreign ships to serve in the British Army or Navy. And paying pirates to attack American ports. Okay, they did that, but it wasn't impressment. That was privateering. Forcing sailors on foreign ships to serve on the British Army or Navy. Bam. Complete the text. In the years before the War 1812, the British impressed sailors on American ships or forced them to join the British Navy. The British thought impressment was fair. They argued they were taking sailors back who had, our choice, are escaped from British prisons, lived in Great Britain, had not paid their taxes, or run away from the British Navy. They said that all the people that they were taking were actually had actually run away from the British Navy, that they were AWOL, absent without, we call it in the military, we call it absent without leave. Life in the British Navy was difficult. It was very hard to be a British sailor. They were bad food, bad pay, harsh conditions. Many sailors had run away to work on American merchant ships. So the British used impressment to get them back. The British argued that they were only taking sailors who had run away from the British Navy, which was a lie. However, it was often hard to tell which sailors were British and which were American. The British would sometimes take American sailors too, especially if you're a big, strong guy and said, oh yeah, that guy's clearly British. They didn't want the weak, spindly ones. They wanted the big, tough, buff-looking guys. All right, and that's all I'm going to do at this time. Make sure you do answer the questions in the Ed puzzle.